my big brother, he was just gone with sports, immersed in it. And I think that's where my desire to my brother's a lot like my father too, in the sense that you really need to partake in what he wants to do if you want to spend any time with him. And so I also feel like that was a factor. But this is the story I always tell about sports.
So you did it out of survival.
Well, no, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to lay it all off on him, because here was the appealing part to little Jack as, a 5 or 6-year-old boy. It had nothing to do with the competition. It certainly had nothing to do with the physicality, as they say. It had nothing to do with the physical engagement, the hitting and the violence and, nothing like that. It had nothing to do with any of the army bullshit, all the, it's about discipline and winning and valor. And, oh, fuck all that shit. It's a bunch of hogwash horseshit anyway. So none of that was running through my veins. It never has. The interesting part to me was that all of the teams wear different colors.
Oh, yeah.
And
mascots.
All of the teams have different logos on their helmets. And some of them feature really neat little creatures like dolphins or, and there's guys with all different sorts of last names that I've never heard before. And they all have a story behind them. And, so it was anything that's entertainment based, really. And in this case, it's those elements that really drew me to sports and I think kept me there. But, for him, it was a lot more of the, the team's got to win. And I remember when I was forbidden from liking the Miami Dolphins because he hated them. He'd grown up hating the Dolphins for whatever reason. And I remember when it was an obvious slam dunk. I'm 4 years old and it's just like football. Yay. Who do you like? I like the Dolphins. Of course they wear teal and orange. They wear the most effeminate colors in the league at that time. And they've got a, friggin' dolphin with a helmet on jumping through a sun hoop. I mean, Of course I like them the most. And I never forget my brother, literally telling my mom, ordering her at the kitchen table, you can't like the Dolphins. This is bullshit. Mom, tell him he can't like the Dolphins. Tell him right now he's not allowed to have the Dolphins as his favorite team. And I just remember being so beleaguered as a little boy, why can't I like the Dolphins? It was not allowed. It was forbidden. It became clear. If you want to keep me as your brother and do this, you will not like Miami. And so I went to my next choice, which was, Minnesota wears purple. That's really neat. Okay, he's allowed Minnesota. It's Minnesota's NFC. It's okay. It's all right. They're not in the Seahawks. they're not in the same conference as the Seahawks or the Steelers. So they're okay. They're in the NFC Central with my Packers. And I don't like that, but I'll let the kid like Minnesota. They're losers. They're perpetual chumps. They've lost 4 Super Bowls.
I'm glad you brought up the Dolphins because that goes to my second.
That's my story as a kid of how it all started.
That goes to my second favorite sports memory growing up, which was my vintage 1990s Miami Dolphins starter Pro Line pouch jacket. I loved.
Talk about, I think it's time to make a Christmas Story Part 2 finally.
That
sounds just like the Red Ryder BB gun.
I loved that jacket.
Red Ryder Air Ryder BB gun with,
and it had a giant logo on the back of the Miami Dolphins. I had the Dolphins. My brother had the Chiefs. My brother is such a hoarder. He probably still has his jacket. But, man, if I still had that jacket, that would be so cool. I just found one online. I could buy one for probably more money than my original one cost. $169, and I could have my vintage 1990s Miami Dolphins starter Pro Line pouch jacket.
$169 US plus shipping and tax just doesn't seem like that much to relive a memory of that magnitude.
It doesn't. But, it was funny because we ordered it in probably the J.C. Penney's catalog. And that was back that was back in the day when you had to go into the store and ask them if it was there yet. Because you didn't have tracking. You didn't have any of that stuff. And
Amazon was still a river in Brazil.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it felt like it took years and years for that jacket to come in. And I remember it like it was yesterday. There it is, the big teal jacket.
I had a tendency to latch on to the worst teams in the league too. And I remember in the 80s also being a big fan of the Colts and the Bills because they were both perpetual just doormat losers. And for whatever reason, I was always attracted to the underdog. And so I also latched on to them. So as far as reliving things that I had, a la your jacket, I had a Minnesota Vikings football helmet. Now, of course, it wasn't professional grade, but it probably wasn't far off from what they used to wear compared to now. Because, now they have those space age looking things that they all sport. But so I remember that. It was kind of a Fran Tarkenton special with a single bar in the front, the face mask you'd never see anymore with that
Right.
single bar.
Like the single bar kicker mask.
I had a Baltimore Colts Randy McMillan jersey that all this stuff came from the Sears catalog, too, just like yours. The jersey was, they had no official. It was not the marketing behemoth that has become since then. The jersey, I remember getting it. It was downright dark navy. I mean, it was darker than the New York Giants jersey at the time, which was darker than the Baltimore Colts jersey by far, just as itself. It was indigo blue and totally the wrong color. I remember holding it up and was like, this is not a Colts jersey. This is just a jersey that's really, really dark blue with two number 32s on it, one on the front, one on the back. And it was like, that's it. So I remember wearing that. My favorite football that I ever had, I pulled from the bin of a local store that's been around for decades here and is still here, but it's an Ace Hardware now, so it's not exactly the same thing. They sold out. It was a Paul Bear Bryant football, and it was foam, so it was similar to Nerf, but it wasn't the same exact stuff. And it was brown, and it had, it wasn't like Nerf was always okay, but the thing that I always wanted out of Nerf balls was realism. And they were always neon yellow or bright fucking orange, and the lace and everything was a solid color. I was like, okay, Nerf, great. But this was like the Nerf to end all Nerfs because it was brown. It was the same color as a football. It had laces that popped out and were actually like painted white. And it actually had the little half stripes that were on the edge of the ball. Loved that ball.